everybody and welcome back to Natalie Reads. My name is Natalie and today I have my August TBR, which is mainly my TBR for Aurelium, which is the magical readathon hosted by G at Bookroast. This is the autumn semester. I'll leave the announcement video down below. I don't think I have many books that I want to read this month that aren't on my TBR for magical readathon. I mean, none are popping to my head off the top of my head. I mean, I may start some books at the end of July that I don't quite finish in July, so those will move over to August. But besides that, I think everything I pretty much want to read in August. So I guess let's get into the TBR for magical readathon. So magical readathon, I am pursuing the path of Godseer, and that means I need a bunch of different prompts. And the way this round works is for each subject there's 3 different levels, O, D, and Q, and there's different prompts. I'm doing a bad job at explaining this. To get an O in one subject, you need to read one prompt from that subject. And to get a D, you need to read the O prompt in the D prompt. To get a Q, you need to read the O, D, and Q prompt. I don't know if that makes a whole lot of sense. That's the best I can do at explaining it. But yeah, I think let's get into the TBR. So the first subject I need is inscription, and for that I need an O, and my prompt is to reread a childhood favorite. And for that I am going to be reading I Tell You I Love You But Then I Have to Kill You by Allie Carter. This is the first book in the Gallagher Girls series, which is a series I read when I was 12, I think. I still consider that my childhood. And I absolutely love this series. I have such fond memories of it, and so in August I want to do a 24-hour readathon where I read the entire series, which I said I was going to do in July, and I didn't end up doing it, so hopefully I can stick to my word this time. In this book we're following our main character, whose name I think is Cammie, and she goes to this all-girls spy school where they're all training to become spies, and they all live in this like mansion that's like secluded off from the rest of the world in this town. One day Cammie goes out, she sees a guy, she falls in love, and it's about her like kind of sneaking out of school and having a relationship with him. This first book is honestly interesting because it's kind of more like an introduction to the world, and then books 2 through 6 have a wider plot, but I'm really excited to reread the series. It's definitely a childhood favorite of mine. Next, I need a Q in restoration, and the first prompt I need to read for that is a book with a single object that's like on the cover. That's the main focus of the cover, and for this I'm going to be reading Assassin's Quest by Robin Hobb. On like the illustrated editions, the cover has like an emblem on it that's like the pretty much focus of it, so I'm counting that as a single object that's being focused on. And this is the 3rd book in the Farseer trilogy. It's the conclusion to the Farseer trilogy, and then the 3rd book in the overall Elderling series. Realm of the Elderlings, that's what it's called. So yeah, I'm really excited to read this book to finish up the series. The first 2 books in the series have been 5 stars. They've been absolutely amazing, and I am so worried about everything that is going to happen in this final book, and I'm so scared to read it, but I'm also so excited. So in the Farseer trilogy, we follow Fitz, who is the bastard son to the king in waiting, and he spends the first few years of his life living with his mother and grandfather, but then his grandfather decides he's had enough of him, drops Fitz off at the keep, and while Fitz is being transferred from the keep to the royal palace, his father hears of his existence and decides to abdicate the throne, leaving Fitz in an awkward position. When he arrives at the palace, he is then raised by the stable master Borch until he becomes old enough that the king takes notice in him and decides to make Fitz the royal assassin. And that's the beginning of the story of Fitz. It's a sad story. Instead of Farseer trilogy, I think this series could also be called Everything Horrible That's Ever Happened to Fitz in His Life. It's a great book though. Robin Hobb's style of writing just immerses you completely in the story, and you care about the characters so much. So I am so excited to finish up the series and see what's gonna happen, but I'm also terrified. The other prompt I need to fulfill for restoration is the oldest book on your TBR. I am kind of spinning this prompt a little bit because I don't remember what the oldest book on my physical TBR, so I'm going off of the oldest book on my Kindle TBR. From all the books I have on Kindle Unlimited, I looked at the one that has been on my Kindle for the longest, and that is The Hobbit by J.R. Tolkien. So I'm going to be starting this series in August. I'm very excited to be doing so, and I'm nervous but excited, but I'm especially excited to read this series because with the new Amazon Prime TV show coming out, I want to kind of read the series and watch the movies, so I will be able to watch that show. So yeah, The Hobbit I think is following Bilbo Baggins as he goes on a quest, maybe to get like the ring that's what's in Lord of the Rings? I'm not 100% sure. I know almost nothing about Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit. I watched the first 30 minutes of The Fellowship of the Ring, and that is the extent of my knowledge on the series. So yeah, I'm excited to read it. It's going to be interesting, but hopefully I'll enjoy it. For Conjuration, I also need a cue, so I need to read 2 prompts from that. And the first one is a book with necromancy themes. And for that, I'm going to be reading Harrow the Ninth, which is the sequel to Gideon the Ninth. I read Gideon in July, and I absolutely adored it. It was 5 stars, and I'm so excited to see what Harrow is going to bring. And this book fits the prompt because Harrow is a necromancer. This is set in a world where all like the powerful people are necromancers. And in Gideon the Ninth, we follow Gideon, who is an indentured servant to the Ninth House, and she is looking to escape. She's been trying to escape her entire life, but unfortunately, her latest escape plan is thwarted by Harrow, who needs Gideon's help. Harrow has been called to the first house along with all the other heirs to the houses because they are having the opportunity to try to earn one of the most prestigious roles in the land, and to do so they need a cavalier, and Harrow's cavalier runs away basically, and so she needs Gideon because Gideon is pretty good with the sword. So it's about Gideon and Harrow's journey in the first house, trying to figure out what is going on as people actually start dying, and something is definitely afoot. I absolutely adored Gideon. It was like just barely a 5-star, and it was like what happened at the end that made it a 5-star. So that makes me really excited for Harrow and everything that's going to happen in the sequel and everything new we're going to learn, because I think we're going to learn a lot more about the world and what is going on. The second prompt I needed to read for Conjuration is a book with bones on the cover or in the title, and I was a little bit concerned as to what I was going to read because I had no idea. But then I remembered, well, I guess there's 2 solutions to this problem. One, I could read any volume of One Piece because all of them have the Jolly Roger on the title or on the symbol for One Piece, and the Jolly Roger is a skull and bones. But then I remembered on some of the volumes of One Piece there is Brooks. I don't know if that'll focus on him, but Brooks is a skeleton, so he is made up of bones and only bones. So I can just read any volume of One Piece that has Brooks on the title, the cover. The one earliest to where I am is volume 61, so I should have absolutely no problem reading a volume with Brooks on the cover for this prompt. So yeah, that's a pretty easy one to fulfill actually once I thought about what I was reading. And One Piece, we're following Monkey D. Luffy, who decides he wants to be the king of the pirates, and it is about his adventure on the Grand Line, which is the most dangerous place in the world, to find the One Piece. And things happen, and that is all I can say about the series because it has expanded so much and so many things are happening. And yeah, I'm super excited to continue on with the series. I just finished the, what's it called? Impel Down arc, which is in the Summit War saga, I think. Super excited to continue reading the series. It's absolutely amazing. The next subject I need is demonology, and for that I only need an O, and the prompt for that is read a fantasy book. So most of the books I read are fantasy, but the one that I'm saying for this one I want to read is Sapphire Flames by Ilona Andrews, which is the 4th book in the Hidden Legacy series, which may seem a little bit weird, but it is the first book in Catalina's trilogy, and the final book in Catalina's trilogy comes out in August, so I want to reread the first 2 books in her series to be prepared for when that 3rd book comes out, so that everything that has happened in this trilogy is extremely fresh in my mind. In the Hidden Legacy series, we start in the 1st book following Nevada Baylor, who is a truth seeker, I think. She can tell when people are lying, I think, and no one knows she has this power. It's in a world where a lot of people have powers and magical powers are fairly accepted, and Nevada and her family work as private investigators, and one day she's told she needs to figure out where this guy is who's been going around murdering people. He's very dangerous, he has fire magic, and his family wants him back, so Nevada is put on the case, and to do this she needs to team up with Mad Rogan, who is a very dangerous military man and also one of the most powerful magic users, and everyone is terrified of him, and of course they're gonna fall in love, and there's a larger conspiracy, you know. So I'm really excited to reread parts of the series. I absolutely love it. It's so much fun and the romance is super good, so looking forward to it. And the final subject I need is lore, and in lore I need a D. So the first prompt is a book that has your country's flag's colors, and for this I'm also going to be reading any volume of One Piece. So pretty much any volume of One Piece has red, white, and blue. I'm from the US, our colors are red, white, and blue. I mean, I could just pull up this volume, it's volume 60, so it's the one right before the one with Brooks on it, and we have red, blue, and white. so really no problem for this prompt. Really, any volume of One Piece has so many different colors on it, and red, white, and blue are very common colors, so One Piece definitely fits these prompts. And I already told you guys what One Piece is all about. Next is a book with a betrayal. And I guess this one's kind of hard to know for sure that this book has a betrayal in it, but I did kind of Google it and it looks like there is, and that is She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan. Like I said, I could be completely wrong and this book doesn't have a betrayal, but given that it is a fantasy book, I feel like it's pretty likely. I don't know a whole lot about what this book is about. I've just seen so many good reviews, and when I did used to know what this book was about, it intrigued me, so I figured I should pick it up, and I will read you all the synopsis. In a famine-stricken village on a dusty yellow plain, two children are given two fates, a boy, greatness, a girl, nothingness. In 1345, China lies under the harsh Mongol rule. For the starving peasants of the Central Plains, greatness is something found only in stories. When the Zhu family's 8th son is born, Zhu Shongba is given a fate of greatness. Everyone is mystified as to how it will come to pass. The fate of nothingness received by the family's clever and capable second daughter, on the other hand, is only as expected. When a bandit attack orphans the two children, though, it is Zhu Shongba who succumbs to despair and dies. Desperate to escape her own fated death, the girl uses her brother's identity to enter a monastery as a young male novice. They are propelled by her burning desire to survive. Zhu learns she is capable of doing whatever it takes to stay hidden from her fate and claim her brother's given destiny as her own. So it sounds really interesting. There's definitely going to be hidden identity stuff in the story, which I find really interesting, and I'm excited. It sounds like it's interesting, and I've heard good things, so let's hope this book does not let me down and that there is actually a betrayal in it. And the final prompt I need to complete for lore is a secondhand book. Once again, I am stretching this prompt, and I'm going with a lot of that. Well, technically, books that you get out from the library are secondhand books because people have read them before you. It's probably bad logic, but it's what I'm using. And so the book from my library that I will be using is The Three-Body Problem. I'm not even going to attempt to say the author's name because I would butcher it so poorly, but this book is translated from Ken Liu, and it was originally written in, I believe, Chinese. I haven't read anything by the author of this book, but I actually have read something by the translator, if it's the same Ken Liu that I'm thinking of. I just read Grace of Kings last month. So yeah, this book sounds really interesting. It's a sci-fi book, which I love sci-fi, but more importantly, it's a sci-fi book with aliens in it. So that sounds interesting. I think it's about like people who try to communicate with space and then start talking with aliens, and stuff spirals from there. So I will read the synopsis so I can give you all a better idea as to what this book actually is about. The book begins against the backdrop of China's Cultural Revolution, when a secret military project sends signals into space to establish contact with aliens. An alien civilization on the brink of destruction captures the signal and begins planning their introduction to Earth. Over the next few decades, they establish first contact via very unlikely means, an unusual online video game steeped in philosophy and history. As the aliens begin to win Earthbound players of the game over to their side, different camps start forming, planning to either welcome the superior beings and help them take over a world seen as corrupt, or to fight against the invasion. It sounds really interesting. I love anything sci-fi that has to do with space, because that is something that actually in like the real world interests me so much. Like, I firmly believe that there are aliens out there. I think this book is going to be absolutely amazing. I think it's a pretty highly acclaimed book in China. I think. Once again, I don't know this. Yeah, it's a best-selling Chinese science fiction novel. So yeah, I'm hoping it's as good as it sounds and that I do love it a lot. So those are all the books that I need to read for Magical Readathon. I guess the only thing I could say I'm kind of planning on reading in August is Maybe. And this is like the most maybe of all maybes. Mansfield Park by Jane Austen, or Northanger Abbey. I may actually go with Northanger Abbey because Mansfield Park is the only Austen novel I need to read before I have read all of her works, but I do want to reread Northanger Abbey because the first time I read it, I didn't understand that it was satire, and so most of the jokes went right over my head. So I want to reread it now, knowing that it is satire and that it is supposed to be funny. So I'll have to read that over Mansfield Park, but Mansfield Park is kind of big and it scares me, so we'll see. And those are all the books I want to read. I will definitely probably read some other books. I'll probably read some romance, but I don't really know what I want to read at the moment. So yeah, that's my July TBR. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Down below will be links to all of the books I mentioned, as well as my Goodreads, my Bookstagram, and the announcement video for Magical Readathon. Subscribe to see more content from me, and I'll see you on my next video very soon. Bye!